the styles of Qigong, there are many, right? Saying Qigong is sort of like saying food. You know, you can have ice cream or you can have broccoli, right? They're both great, but they're going to do something different, right? So the most popular style of Qigong that you see out there today, right, is Tai Chi. And you see people sort of moving in the park, and they say, wow, that's really interesting. It's beautiful, right? The movements flow. It's really relaxing. It's sometimes called moving meditation. That's a martial style of Qigong. If taken to its martial conclusions, as you sort of practice the form and then you practice some of the pushing hand techniques, that Qi is going to begin to condense in the joints. It's called Jin. It gives you an explosive power if you need to protect yourself. You could either push the person if you were nice. If you were not so nice, you could strike and release. They call Fa Jin, release the power. And that travels forth to protect you. That's why Tai Chi is so great for arthritis, because its principles are to condense the energy in the joints. And so it will both protect the joints and also help them heal if they're injured. And so that's the most common style of Qigong. You see, and that's still considered what we call a Neidan, N-E-I-D-A-N, Neidan, which means an internal cultivation. It means that you want to take the energy so deeply inside the body that it begins to overflow, begins to flow out. The other styles, the general style would be what they call Weidan, which means I want that energy out. I want it out against the surface, right? And those are usually more martial styles of Qigong. You know? So a lot of times the Weidan that you see, right? This person, and he's got some bricks or blocks, and he takes one good strike and they break. Did you ever notice he only does that once, right? Because you have to build the charge. You do it the second time, the bricks stay fine, the hand goes, right? You have to build the charge and release it. And so this, you know, which is really absurd because you never get attacked by bricks. I mean, it's a good show, right? It makes you fun at parties. But the problem with Weidan is that if one does exclusively the external cultivation, you actually take from the organs and you bring it to the structure of the body. And the organs actually begin to break down over time. And so people would say, well, why would you do that? Well, you do it if you were a member of the warrior class, right? You probably weren't going to see 30 years old anyway. So it was sort of worth it, you know, to sort of prove your worth. It doesn't come up often now, you know, like I can't remember the last Mongol invasion I had to participate in, right? It's not really that necessary. But for those people who did survive, that's really, you know, the internal cultivations, you know, like the Tai Chis, the Xingyi, the Bagua. Although Aikido is a sort of modern interpretation of that. The principles are still the same. That you want to bring, you're like, wow, I don't have any organs left. And I still need to keep myself safe. It's still a dangerous world out there. And so we want to bring the energy deep inside so that it then can flow outward. It takes a little bit longer, but it's worth it. So these things will come across. You know, you hear people say, well, oh, I do white crane Qigong. You know, and that's one of these. You take a deep inhale and you exhale and you flex and the face gets red. Veins come out along here. And it's impressive. You know, people can do this. They're very, very strong. But they have an internal and an external. If you're going to do one, you ought to do the other. And I'm just sort of putting this out there because in your studies you may come across, oh, okay, I'm interested. Here's this person, they're doing this. Boy, that was a lot of hard physical work. Remember to cultivate the inside afterwards, okay? You don't want to rob your organs, right? So they talk about the different systems. And in general, in China, there's Confucian Qigong, right? Which is a style of Qigong to improve your memory. That was really, really popular. And the reason they called it Confucian Qigong is Confucius said, well, the best thing you could be is a public official. And they would have these massive exams that would take like a month to complete. And you had to have all this stuff from memory. And so they developed the Qigong to allow you to remember these things. You know? And then they talk about the Buddhist systems of Qigong. And the Buddhist systems of Qigong was to relax the mind and the nervous system so much that you begin to reach these transcendent states. I mean, the Buddhists don't own it, right? But they just sort of call it Buddhist Qigong, right? And so this was the more, what do we want to say, meditative styles of Qigong. Like how do we sort of leave ourselves and reach those transcendent states and sort of discover that divine principle inside the body. The martial we talked about, and the Taoist Qigongs really had to do with harmonizing with everything that happens to be alive. And so the Taoist Qigong would be like, well, okay, it's windy today. Can I feel and communicate with the qi of the wind? Can I communicate with sunlight? Can I look at a plant or an animal and feel its essence and see how we resonate with each other? And they say it's very rare for a Taoist to get attacked by a wild animal. Because the wild animal looks and he sees the Taoist and he only sees himself. He wouldn't attack himself. Because they have such resonance with everything that's alive. And out of these Taoist traditions, a lot of the medicinal Qigongs came to be. The way we say, when people say, well, it's medical Qigong, the reason we call it medical Qigong is it helps us heal and helps us to help other people. But most of these principles were an outgrowth of the Taoist and the Buddhist systems combined.